There is a house in the Philippines that refuses to die. You can find it along the highway between San Miguel and San Ildefonso in Bulacan province. It stands alone in an open field, surrounded by tamarind trees, camachile trees, and duhat trees that have watched over it for almost a century. The walls are gone. The floors have been stripped away. The windows and doors were taken years ago. Only the skeleton remains. The wooden frame, the foundation, and that color, that deep blood-red color that gave it its name. Bahay na Pula, the red house, local people avoid it. They cross to the other side of the road when they pass, because when the sun goes down, they say you can hear things. Voices, women screaming, men speaking in Japanese, sounds that should not exist in an empty shell of a building. But this is not just another ghost story. This is something far more real, far more horrifying. And it took over 50 years for anyone to speak about what really happened here. In 1929, a wealthy man named Don Ramon Ilosorio built a mansion in Barangay Anyatam. The Ilosorio family owned its vast hacienda lands across the region. They needed a grand house to match their status. The mansion was constructed mostly from wood, 2 stories tall, elegant Spanish colonial design, and painted entirely in red, a striking, vibrant red that could be seen from far across the green fields. It was beautiful, a symbol of prosperity. The gardens bloomed with fruit trees. The interiors were finished with expensive narrow wood floors, wrought iron windows and doors imported from overseas. This was a house built for celebrations, for life, for family. For 15 years it served that purpose. Then the world changed. War came to the Philippines, and this beautiful red mansion would become something else entirely, something that would haunt the surrounding villages for generations. The Japanese Imperial Army was retreating across the Philippines in late 1944. They were desperate, angry, and about to commit acts so terrible that the survivors would keep silent about them for over half a century. November 23, 1944. This date is burned into the memory of every survivor who lived through it. General Tomoyuki Yamashita commanded the 14th Area Army defending the Philippines. He was known as the Tiger of Malaya, a brilliant strategist, but now he was losing. The Americans were closing in. His supply lines were cut. His troops were scattered and starving. The Geki Group, part of his 14th District Army, suspected the village of Mapaniqui in Candaba, Pampanga, of supporting Filipino guerrillas, the Hukbalahap resistance fighters. On that day, they decided to make an example of the village. Japanese soldiers stormed into Mapaniqui without warning. They set houses on fire. They gathered all the villagers into the schoolyard. Then they separated the men and boys from the women and girls. What happened next was designed to break the spirit of the entire community. The soldiers tortured the men in front of their families. Some were castrated. Others were beaten until they could not stand. Then they were thrown into the burning schoolhouse. The smell of burning human flesh filled the air. One survivor, Lola Beniang, later described the smell as almost sweet. She said if you were hungry, it would make you want to eat. Then she said she buried that memory so deep she never wanted it opened again. But it was already too late. That day was only the beginning. Over 100 women and girls were forced to march from Mapaniqui to San Ildefonso. Some sources say as many as 200. They were ordered to carry the Japanese loot, provisions, stolen goods from the burned houses. The march ended at the Bahay na Pula, the Red House. The Japanese had turned Don Ramon Ilosorio's mansion into a garrison, a military outpost, and now it would become something far worse. The women and girls ranged in age from 8 years old to their early 20s. Some were mothers and daughters. Some were sisters. They were dragged into the dark rooms of the mansion, and the nightmare began. The soldiers subjected them to horrific abuse, multiple times, different soldiers, over and over again. Some of the women were held for days, others for weeks. A few were taken to other garrisons in San Miguel, where they were imprisoned for 3 months. One survivor testified that a young woman endured this abuse 20 to 30 times in a single day. Girls who fought back were injured with weapons. One prepubescent girl named Lola Honor was hurt when she resisted. The beautiful narrow floors of the mansion absorbed their screams. The red walls witnessed their trauma. And when it was finally over, when the soldiers moved on or were defeated, the women went home to villages that had been destroyed, to families that had been lost, to lives that could never be the same. The women who survived did not speak about what happened, not to anyone, not for decades. In Filipino culture, the shame of sexual violence falls on the victim. To speak about being raped meant being cast out from your own community. It meant being unmarked, unmarriageable, damaged. So the women stayed silent. They carried the weight alone. Some married, some had children. They went through the motions of normal life, but the red house haunted them. Many of them still lived in the same area. They could see it from the highway. That red skeleton, that constant reminder. The Bahay na Pula itself began to decay. The Ilusorio family abandoned it. No one wanted to live in a house with such a dark history. Slowly, piece by piece, it was stripped. The narrow floors were removed. The wrought iron windows disappeared. The walls came down. But the frame remained. And that red color never faded. As if the house itself remembered. As if it was waiting for someone to tell the truth about what happened within its walls. That truth would finally come out in 1996, 52 years after the attack. And it would come because women in other countries found the courage to speak first. In 1992, a Filipino woman named Maria Rosa Luna Henson became the first comfort woman in the Philippines to publicly speak about her experience. She broke the silence that had lasted almost 50 years. Her courage inspired other women across Asia to come forward. In Korea, in China, in Indonesia, in Taiwan. Survivors of Japanese military sexual slavery began telling their stories. The world learned that approximately 200,000 women had been forced into this system during World War II. In 1996, the women of Mapaniqui finally decided to speak. They broke their silence together. 96 women, all survivors, all carrying the same trauma for over 5 decades. In 1997, they formed an organization. They called themselves the Malaya Lolas, the Free Grandmothers, or the Grandmothers of Freedom. They were no longer victims hiding in shame. They were fighters demanding justice. The Malaya Lolas composed songs about their experience. 18 stanzas sung in the style of Pangangalua, which are hymns for the dead. One song describes the Red House as a house of horror. The lyrics speak of broken minds and broken bodies, of waiting for justice that never comes. They traveled to Tokyo. They testified at the Women's International War Crimes Tribunal. In the year 2000, they filed cases in Philippine courts. They demanded an official apology from Japan. They demanded compensation. They demanded recognition that what happened to them was a war crime, a crime against humanity. But justice moved slowly, too slowly. The survivors were getting older. In 2016, the Bahay na Pula was partially demolished. There were rumors it would be rebuilt at a heritage site in Bataan. That never happened. Today, only the skeleton stands, the frame, the foundation, and that red color that refuses to fade. Local residents say the house is haunted. They claim to hear women crying when the sun sets. They hear soldiers speaking in Japanese. They see shadows moving in the empty frame where rooms used to be. Paranormal investigators have featured it on television shows. Ghost hunters visit with cameras. But they are chasing the wrong story. The real horror of the Red House is not supernatural. It is historical. It is documented. It is real. The Philippine Supreme Court dismissed the Malaya Lolas' case in 2010. They said it was a political question, that only the president could decide to pursue their claims against Japan. An appeal in 2014 was also rejected. So in 2019, the Malaya Lolas went to the United Nations. They filed a complaint against the Philippine government itself, not for what the Japanese did, but for what the Philippines failed to do, for failing to protect them, for failing to seek justice on their behalf, for failing to provide recognition or reparations. By then, only 24 of the original 96 survivors remained. They were in their 80s and 90s. Some were bedridden, some suffered from strokes. Time was running out. On March 8, 2023, the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women ruled in favor of the Malaya Lolas. They found that the Philippine government had violated the rights of these women by failing to provide proper recognition and redress for their suffering. The ruling demanded full reparation, an official apology, material and moral damages, recognition of what happened. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ordered government agencies to create a comprehensive response. The Department of Justice promised to discuss legislation to help the survivors. But as of now, no fund has been created, no official apology has been given, no compensation has been paid. The Malaya Lolas continue to wait. 21 survivors remain. They are all over 90 years old now. Every month that passes, more of them die. Soon there will be no one left to tell this story firsthand. The Red House stands as their witness, a skeleton painted in blood red, a reminder that some horrors are so great that even destroying the building cannot erase what happened there. The walls are gone, but the memory remains. The survivors are leaving us, but their testimony endures. This is the story of the Bahay na Pula. This is the story of the Malaya Lolas. This is a ghost story that is not about ghosts at all. It is about courage, about survival, about women who carried an unbearable secret for 50 years and then found the strength to speak. It is about a house painted red that refuses to let the world forget what happened within its walls. And it is about justice delayed for so long that it may never arrive in time.